Hey everyone, my name is Chris Lambert, and on this channel we talk Kanye West. And today we're going to be going over some of the recent Kanye news. We have a handful of articles to go over. Scam likely call. So we're starting with this. I guess the biggest news of the day is just that Kim and Kanye apparently have taken a trip somewhere, and TMZ is framing it that they're trying to save the relationship. Massive uphill battle, which I guess is all speculation at this point. All we really know is that Kanye was seen on a private jet, Saint was on a private jet, and it's reported that they went on this trip to try to work things out, see each other, see where things stand, which is kind of funny because People had released this article. Kim Kardashian is torn over divorcing Kanye West after emotional Wyoming trip, source says. And apparently Kim's team spoke out about this because it was all over In Touch, Page 6, everywhere else. And they don't tend to deny rumors, but they actually went out and said there's no truth to this, yada, yada, yada. And then we see them going and taking this trip the day after these reports are coming out. So the relationship still probably, isn't all hunky-dory, but I don't know if it's as bleak as some of the outlets have been saying, but definitely in a complicated place. And them going to see each other and taking this trip together, I mean, it could go either way, right? It's the first step in what will be one of many steps to reconciliation, or it's this thing of where they go and see and they're like, yeah, you know what, we're done. I guess we'll find out a bit more in the aftermath of this and see what direction the wind is blowing. So next up, we just have Caitlyn Jenner calls Kanye West the most kind, loving human being. And Caitlyn Jenner, when she transitioned a number of years back now, there was a lot of flack during that period from the media, the public, even from the Kardashian and Jenner family. And it was reported at the time that Kanye was really the one that helped Kim and some of Kim's family really understand and be accepting of what Caitlyn has gone through and just what the transition meant, and accepting Caitlyn for Caitlyn. Though I think there's been drama behind the scenes regarding other things that then caused a rift between Caitlyn and the rest of the family. But it seems like Caitlyn still has a lot of goodwill and positive things to say about Kanye. So it was just talking about like how she had texted Kanye saying she would be his vice president, but that it has been years since they've spoken. But just an interesting note. And then Jim Carrey also talked about Kanye. So Jim Carrey, I don't think he acts as much anymore, but he's gotten into painting, and his paintings and drawings are actually like really good, which kind of surprised me. And he just wrote what they're saying is a pseudo-autobiography titled Memoirs and Misinformation. And I think Jim Carrey, especially after he did the Andy Kaufman movie, really got into this idea of performance artist and blurring the line between reality and fiction. And we see that even in movies like Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, that's looking at how surreal aspects of the world can get at the reality of the world, or how the reality can often be surreal or manufactured, which, Kanye, I think, takes a lot of inspiration from Truman Show as well, and just kind of the concepts of what media has done to us in terms of putting almost every celebrity, and it's an exaggeration, the Truman Show, but also gets at kind of a very true aspect to what a lot of celebrities go through with their media coverage. And with social media, a lot of the ways in which people are now conditioned to just kind of think and behave through the public opinions on social media. So in this Memoirs of Misinformation, it has a bunch of real people, kind of like Dante's Inferno, in the sense that like you have real people kind of showing up as characters of themselves and appearing in the book. And it seems that Jim Carrey was telling Bill Maher that a lot of the people in the book got a kick out of their appearances in it, or even Joe Dangerfield, the son of Rodney Dangerfield, talked about how Rodney would have got a kick out of it since Rodney's passed. But I guess at one point Kanye appears. So Maher also read a passage from the book pointing to the fact that it's so hard these days to do parody, you cannot stay ahead of how weird shit is. Reading from an excerpt centered on an alien invasion, Marr said, "At the end, Kanye West says, 'You need not be afraid. They speak to me in supernatural voices. I am one with their jam.'" And I'm not so sure he did say that this week, which is just the joke that Kanye would talk about being able to speak with aliens, which I think is kind of, I don't know Jim Carrey's relationship with Kanye or how much he knows about Kanye, but Kanye over the last handful of years really has identified more with the idea of alien and alien concepts and calling himself an alien. So just being Kanye, the one saying that he can speak to these aliens that are invading, is like pretty correct. But Carrey said, "It's a very strange thing where parody becomes very parallel with reality. But we've got to mark these things, you know? Kanye West is one of the great characters of our zeitgeist at this moment, and I wanted him to have a place in it. No matter what he's doing, I can't figure it out." Yeah. Kanye is on levels way above where most of us are in terms of just like thinking or views. And a lot of the time, I think what's complicating about Kanye is we're not getting the full context of what he's saying. We're often just seeing the snippets or catching the moments, and that can be destabilizing for a lot of people. Like, Kanye is just so out there. But I'm sure if you're around him a lot more, you're impressed by the genius, but you see the continuity of thoughts and the whole picture of a lot of these thoughts and the context around them. So it's probably a lot more coherent, just like logically coherent, and not as shocking, because you can see that these are thoughts that are building up over time and where the inputs are coming from and how he's developed them and changed his thinking on things. And rather than just hearing this snippet here and another snippet months later, and now he's talking about architecture, now he's talking about clothing. Yeah, but he's been talking about those things all the time. We just don't hear it. And then here, Slipknot frontman Corey Taylor says people have a right to be concerned about Kanye West, which is something I never really expected was a dovetailing of Slipknot and Kanye. But I guess he was speaking to Loudwire, and somehow Kanye came up, and he said that he thinks that Kanye's mental health issues could have been exacerbated with fame and money and all of these different things, and that people have a right to be concerned. He's got a family, he's got people who care about him and worry about him. Taylor said, "It's one thing to laugh about it from afar. It's another thing to watch a breakdown happening in real time, especially with someone who is loved by so many people, and a lot of his actions are taken very seriously. I just hope that he gets the help that he needs." It's a pretty like well-rounded, thought-out response by Corey Taylor, right? Which is nice. A lot of responses from people about Kanye make me want to push my fingers into my eyes, which is the one Slipknot song I can reference here. And I don't even think I got the quote right. Push my fingers between my eyes. Okay, yeah. And then we have this. It's an essay on NBC News in their Think area. Kanye West 2020 apology, Kim Kardashian's plea, and a harsh truth about mental health. And it's Nyla Burton. We may have talked about an article from her before, but a woman of color, bipolar diagnosis, and she's writing from that perspective about Kanye and what it means to be a black person that's diagnosed bipolar and how that affects your day-to-day life. And this is not too far removed from the articles we were talking about in the last news video. And there are times where it seems like it might go a little too far one way. I don't even know exactly what I mean by that. But as I was reading, I was like, okay, this might be losing my interest. It's just getting like more into the one-sided aspect of Kanye has an issue and we all just need to accept it, right? Rather than analyzing that and what that means. But the article then continues and goes on. And there's a lot of really insightful thoughts in here about just how do we deal with people and mental health? Because even though mental health, as we talked about the other day, has become more and more of a conversation point and awareness factor in our culture, it tends to be a consideration for people that have anxiety, depression, stress, that's onset by circumstances, right? Or even hereditary, but manageable. We're still struggling to have conversations about people that have mental health issues that tend to affect behavior and personality in a far more dramatic way, and what those conversations look like. And, she goes back to the quote of Letterman, where Kanye said that it's like having a sprained brain, like having a sprained ankle. And if someone has a sprained ankle, you're not going to push on them more. So Kanye, is he having an episode and just doesn't want to admit it? Does he not? Either way, like, people are pushing on him more and more. And is the right thing to push, or is the right thing to kind of step back, discuss, like, what are we supposed to do? And just, it looks at some of the portrayals in the media of characters that have a bit more severe mental health issues, and then how we then treat actual people going through this. And what's it mean that Kanye is the highest profile person in the world right now that's diagnosed bipolar, and what people in the media and even in the public say about him can reflect on how people think about other people dealing with bipolar issues, or even how people with bipolar issues think about themselves. So the point is that mental illness is neither something to be pitied nor something to inherently fear. We have to have compassion for those who are obviously struggling and encourage them to seek help, but we also don't have to excuse their behavior or ignore it, which that just tends to be where a lot of these conversations are kind of circling back to, right? Although ignoring it is sometimes the best thing to do, especially in the case of West's struggles have the potential to ignite deeply important conversations about severe mental health conditions and how to support those with them. As West himself said, pushing on severely mentally ill people only makes the situation worse. But this even comes back to the issue that we're having in talking about Kanye, in that you have people that are so certain this is a mental health issue that we need to discuss, and other people that don't agree with that this isn't mental health related. This is just a frustrated human being, and trying to reframe it in terms of a mental health episode takes away from his frustrations and from his expressions, which that's a whole other conversation, right? Like, it's one thing to be able to have these conversations or talk about how we discuss somebody that's having a mental health episode, but it's even another thing about where to start with diagnosing somebody's mental health episode from afar. Do you listen to people that have similar conditions and that can point to it and say, I recognize this is that, and we give that voice more amplitude, I guess? Or Kanye himself has said that there's nothing wrong with him, and people around him have said that he seems fine. So at that point, like, what do you do there, right? How much do you ignore what the source of the discussion is saying about their own mental health? It's strange. And there was even something, I don't think it was this article, maybe it's another one. Yeah, it's another one, that talked about Elon Musk's reaction to Kanye. Is it not in any of these? Man. Maybe the Musk? Okay, here. Yeah, I actually hadn't seen this before, but apparently Elon talked a little bit more about Kanye, and he said that in one string of posts, West claimed that his wife had tried to get a doctor to have him locked up when he was about, and this is Elon Musk who is then talking about this, when he was about a third of the way through the tweet rampage, just to see if he was doing okay, I sent him a text saying, just checking on you. A lot of people are worried, just wondering if you're okay. And he called me back, and he actually seemed fine. He video FaceTimed me, and he was in Wyoming with a bunch of friends. He seemed fine on the call, but it sounds like things are, not fine. There seem to be a lot of issues. So is that a lot of issues with Kanye himself? Is that just a lot of issues in the marriage? Is that, what is Musk referring to there? But just the fact that, he calls Musk and seems completely fine. What does that mean then? And how are we supposed to consider that information and information from people who have been around Kanye versus what we had seen at the South Carolina campaign, or what we read from his tweets and the takeaway that we have of his mental state from that? Like, how do we rationalize each of those perspectives on the same guy at the same time? Either he's having this big episode and his heightened emotion, but then he's calling Musk and is completely fine talking with him. I don't know. It just shows why the whole conversation is very complicated, and even taking a stand one way or the other is also very complicated. Okay, so we have that, and the whole article is definitely worth reading if you're interested in just figuring out how better to talk about these things and interested in the media's reckoning with how they talk about these things, which I'm very interested in those topics. And here we have New York Magazine's discussion of Kanye West is trying to get on the ballot in Wisconsin, a crucial swing state. So Kanye was still trying to get signatures to be on the ballot in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Arkansas, and West Virginia, but they don't think he's going to be able to do it. This shows, I guess it's a little more comprehensive in terms of where Kanye's political campaign is still at. And it includes the New Jersey stuff that we had talked about the other day, but some more details about Ohio and Wisconsin and the rest of it. But it seems like the political machine is still rumbling along rather than having completely closed up shop. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out articles like this and why, again, it's so hard to trust the media when it comes to just even basic Kanye conversation, because you look at an article, Business Insider, you think that they might like cross their T's and dot their I's a little better. But here you have even two people wrote this article. So Kanye West and Kim Kardashian have spent millions on homes across the country, from Wyoming ranches to an ever-expanding LA compound. Take a look inside their real estate portfolio, which is fascinating on the one hand, just to see the property that these two have accrued. And there are a lot of interesting photos, right? And it kind of goes into the BuzzFeed style, these little clips. It says that they're only worth $1.6 billion, which last I checked, both were considered billionaires at this point, right? So that's a little strange to me. But in September 2019, Kanye bought Monster Lake Ranch, and you can see an aerial picture of it there. Another picture here. I think that's the mountain that they filmed the Follow God video on, which is kind of cool to see. And then the ranch features a restaurant and saloon, horse barns, a state-of-the-art shooting range, which is kind of cool. And you can see the family kind of there eating out with the mountains as a backdrop. But then in November of 2018, after Kanye had already bought that ranch, he bought a second one that's known as the Bighorn Mountain Ranch. And they're about like an hour and a half they're about 2 hours apart. If you look them up, and you can see a little different setup and layouts. This is much closer to like an actual mountain range, which is kind of crazy. The two ranches are under 100 miles apart. And then Kanye was just cleared earlier last month to build a 10-bedroom mansion on his Lakeside, Wyoming property. So all of that above board, it makes sense, right? But this is one of the things where they just kind of don't cross their T's and dot the I's. So it's saying Wyoming is the pair's only vacation destination. In 2018, West scooped up a $14 million condo in a luxurious Fena house on Miami Beach as a Christmas present to his wife. And this was the like famous photo of them on the balcony there. But it was actually this photo that caused them to back out of the deal. Kanye and Kim felt that they didn't have enough privacy, because this was them there for the first time and they're already getting that intimate of a photograph on their porch. So they backed out of the sale. So that's not actually part of their real estate portfolio. But here you have Business Insider not even being able to fact check that, which, like, if you Google Kanye Miami Fena house, it's one of the first things that pops up is that they back out of the sale. Maybe I'm wrong and they ended up going back through it again, but last I saw and heard, no. And then they talked about like him trying to build the domes, and that they had kind of bought more property in their Hidden Hills home, and that Kanye had talked previously about wanting to be a big real estate developer, which is one of the reasons why he's buying these tracts of land in Wyoming. He wants to have property, he wants to build things, and yeah, he's buying a lot of square footage, right? Like 4,000 square feet, 6,000 square feet. The house I grew up on, God, I don't know, it was on half an acre of land, and that seemed really big. Like Kanye could develop his own town, which is crazy to think about. But their house in Hidden Hills is 15,000 square feet, which is kind of wild as well. Or no, 4,000, 6,000 acres. Sorry, I said square feet earlier. And there's a picture of the front of the home from, I think, when it was for sale rather than what it's been updated to. And that's that for that article. Oh yeah, so just them listing some of their old condos, and Kanye had sold his condo in New York City a couple years back, which, yeah, 2,400 square foot open layout, heart of the city. Nice. Okay, and that's it. No real Donda updates, right? Which I wish I had more for you, but it just seems like we're kind of in a waiting pattern from what we talked about yesterday. It seems like, or talked about Saturday. It seems like there's still people out in Wyoming, even though Kanye's currently left Wyoming to go with Kim and the family. Does that mean that the album's done and ready to come out Friday? Does that mean that the album is being put on hold a little longer and we'll just have to wait deeper into August? We don't know. And I don't know if Kanye knows either at this point. But the moment that we do have more information, you bet there'll be a video about it. And now the ending spiel. If you want to support the channel, the easiest way is to like, subscribe, and comment, as those things tell YouTube that people are enjoying this channel, and then they show it to more people. We also have a Patreon where we have all of our podcast episodes. They're the line-by-line analysis of Kanye's entire discography: College Dropout, Late Registration, Graduation, 808s, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Yeezus, Life of Pablo, Yay, and Kids See Ghosts. All available, like, in-depth analysis of the thematic and narrative elements of those songs and those albums. It's the thing that we're most well known for. And that's $5 a month if you go to patreon.com/Kanye podcast. It's is very helpful, which we appreciate the support. And we're also doing just bonus episodes and mini content that's not available anywhere else, not even on the YouTube channel. So we're currently going back through and giving our thoughts and discussions on each of the albums in general. We've covered College Dropout. The Late Registration episode comes out tomorrow, and a Graduation episode we just recorded. So we'll be doing the whole discography like that. And yeah, Jesus is King episodes are still available on anywhere you listen to podcasts, just on the very public feed, whether that's Apple, Spotify, et cetera, YouTube. You can find them. You can find them on here. And then you can follow us at Kanye Podcast on Twitter. And then I write novels. My second novel just came out. So if you want to give that a read, it has the tagline, "The future is as lonely as you imagined," which I think is pretty cool. I think it's a good book. But there's a link in the description for that as well if you want to support my literary endeavors, which is also much appreciated. Until next time, stay wavy and keep it loopy. Cheers.